Hi Facebook, friends and family. Thanks for tuning in again on this beautiful Monday. I hope your weekend was great. Mine was. We did a little grilling and everything like that. Had some friends over, watched the kids burn energy on the trampoline. Hopefully you had a great weekend as well. But it's Monday, time to get back to reality. Today's topic is going to be transitioning from living in maybe an apartment complex or still living with parents and going to your first ever home. So I have experience with this as well. I mean, we're all pretty financially savvy where we can figure out the mortgage, so what we have to pay for each month, the insurance, taxes, we figure out the interest rates, what's best for us. But there are some expenses that we just don't think about always, and I'm here to talk about that a little bit. So when we move, you have two options. You can hire out a moving company, or you can rent out a truck yourself and get some friends who are willing to come and work for peanuts. But there are expenses. So one thing we don't always take into account is if you do rent out a truck, it's the gasoline that you're charged for it. A lot of companies will charge you the gasoline depending on how much you use or whatever company you end up using. And I think we don't always factor in that we are taking time off from work. I mean, I haven't met anybody so far who's able to be done in one day and completely settled in and not have to take off a little bit of time. So you have to factor in what a lost income from your job. And then we also have to think about if we end up going and are lucky enough to hire a moving company where we don't have to lift a finger so much, we still have to think about the movers, drivers that we end up hiring. It is usually accepted that you have to give a tip to them, and it's not like we're going to a restaurant where it ends up being a $5 or $10 tip, because these are going to be a little bit higher cost items that we're going to be dealing with as we pay a moving company. I experienced this next item personally. So I moved from an apartment where everything was taken care of, so didn't have to do the lawn, didn't have to do any maintenance, nothing. So I move out into the country, and suddenly I have about an acre to mow, so I had to go get a lawnmower. I had to take care of edging, trimming, even a garden at one point. I had to make sure I got caught up on tools because I had to take care of maintenance repairs by myself. And that added up extremely quickly. And that's not something we always think about when we're talking about moving. We're thinking about everything else that comes with that. So don't be caught off guard. Make sure you plan that out, because you just never know what happens in that first month, especially if you move. It doesn't matter what time of the season. Summertime, you have to take care of the outside. Wintertime, maybe you have to do some winterizing, etc. So going back to the apartment scenario, it was great. I had everything taken care of: trash removal, snow removal. I actually had water taken care of. I just had to pay for utilities, etc. So now you have to take care of all that by yourself, and you're out on there. So that's another thing you have to add on. But the hidden thing that was kind of a shock for me was I went and had to get a different carrier service for my cable and cell phone. And breaking contracts with those companies, the amount of red tape and people who, I mean, really, it's a company that's from out of state, they don't care. So you have to think about the cost it takes to break that contract and if it's worth it, or, and sometimes you just don't have a choice, unfortunately, if you want to have those services. So keep that in mind again. And then this is more from my first home to my second home. So my family and I moved into a second home where we were able to get a little more elbow room and suddenly a lot more space. And my wife and I looked around and we kept thinking, holy cow, that's an empty room. What are we going to put in there? And I kept thinking, what are you talking about? But it's true. We have to figure out furnishings, and not only have to figure out furnishings, we have to figure out a way that matches the actual interior of our home. So besides having to worry about a different mortgage, different expenses, we have to worry about actually matching it to the interior of our house now. Again, these are all hidden things that we're not always taking care of, we're not always thinking about, but it's there and it's a reality. As a personal aside, especially for your first-time home buyers, first-time movers, boxes. So I've done this a few times. I still haven't learned. whatever many boxes that you're able to gather to start packing up your belongings, just triple it. That's just the rule of thumb. I've heard this from other clients as well, where they start not necessarily wrestling, but yeah, wrestling with each other to get that last box because they still have things they have to pack and realize they're running out of actual carriers, etc. Favorite places for me are grocery stores and liquor stores. And I think my last move, I visited about 7 liquor stores in my town, and it must have looked pretty interesting to people because I did it with my 5-year-old. But those are my tips for this week. Thanks for hanging in there with me, watching, listening. I hope to see you guys all around the area. Thanks for checking in again. I'm glad you, I hope you found this useful. But until next week, I will talk to you later, and thanks again.